Channel 8, I'm Jerome Aegean, and here's some of the top stories we have for you tonight. The governor's State of the Territory address, dirty water in Estate Grove, and a dumb crook you don't want to miss. These stories and more are up next on News Channel 8. In our top story tonight, Governor John DeYoung gave his fourth State of the Territory address at Otley Hall on St. Thomas before senators and citizens of the Virgin Islands. The governor's words were met with much favoritism as he discussed where we're going and where we've been in the last 4 years. We're not out of the woods yet, stated the governor, addressing the $234 million in tax revenues uncollected last year, resulting in a 30% loss. Despite the loss, John DeYoung pointed out the pre-plans he established before the recession that has spared us from the fate of many of government workers in the mainland, keeping many Virgin Islands government workers in their jobs with few pay cuts and layoffs.
I cannot emphasize this enough. When you survey our region and the nation, from nearby Puerto Rico to states across the country, government workers are being sent home. Furloughs and layoffs, from teachers to police officers to clerks. Nearly every state in the country has enacted layoffs, cut salaries, closed schools, recreation centers, or senior citizen homes. I am proud to say that to date, we have done none of these things. We have chosen to take a different path. I believe that the layoff of government workers, cut in critical social and public health services, or to raise taxes to attempt to compensate for our lost revenues would devastate our economy and cripple our efforts. Instead, I came to you for your support. And with your approval, we borrowed $250 million against these new revenues to give us time to bridge the difficult period and to build a more diversified and solid foundation for economic growth when real growth returns once again to the United States and to the world economies.
Other positive notes that Governor John DeYoung pointed out was the 911 Center, the Bureau of Corrections, and the Diageo Rum Distillery. Also earlier today, Governor John DeYoung held a press conference on St. Thomas to address his controversial security enhancements to his private home. News Channel 8's Lee Carl files this report.
John DeYoung, in a press conference following the State of the Territory address, addressed a number of issues, but one that he felt that he did not cover in the State of the Territory specifically was the matter of what they call the gate investigation, the hearing. That is the security measures at his home. But in an opening statement, he made it quite clear where he stood on this.
The State of the Territory provide an opportunity to answer any questions that there may be with respect to what I outlined and what I noted during the State of the Territory address. But before I answer any questions that there may be on topics like that, I'd like to read a statement that I've prepared with respect to the Inspector General's report on the security improvements at my residence. The local office of the Inspector General of the United States Department of Interior recently released an investigative report with respect to security enhancements made at my residence after I chose to live there because there was no secure and appropriate housing owned by the government of the Virgin Islands when I took office. As I've stated in the past, I chose the route of security enhancements because it would have been considerably more expensive to refurbish and to rebuild Catherineburg than it was to remain in my own home, and I sought the most cost-effective route. It should be clear to all that I never had any intention to benefit from any money spent for security after my service as governor. And indeed, and as I've said before, and I repeat here today, I have committed to repaying to the government the value of what remains after my term. But the issue that is central to the Inspector General's report is whether this work was undertaken with proper authority and with approvals. The question is, were the funds used in fact reprogrammed by the legislature in Act number 6917 for uses other than for roads? The Inspector General's report says they were not. We respectfully disagree. We believe that the reprogramming was done in Act 6917, which was an omnibus bill, included many diverse matters. It was because in that same bill, there was the East End cemetery vaults and drainage improvements were built. And that is the reason the security work went ahead. Because just as the administration has sought, and I relied upon, an opinion of the Attorney General before moving ahead, so too did we await the reprogramming of funds so that the work could commence on the projects before they proceeded. I want to reiterate, as I've done in the past, that all steps taken during the entire process by my administration has been open and transparent. Any work that was completed was done after requests for proposals and competitive bids. Nobody was ever asked, nor will anyone ever be asked, to do anything that was improper or unauthorized. That is why we sought the opinion of the Attorney General at the beginning, and that is why we sought and obtained the reprogramming of funds before any funds were spent. And I think it is patently unfair for professionals in our Departments of Property and Procurement, Public Works, and the Department of Justice to be subjected to the kind of personal abuse that has been directed at them for simply doing their jobs professionally and legally. I also want to assure everyone in the Virgin Islands that all the work that was done on the security enhancements, the cemetery vaults, and the drainage improvements were done in compliance with VI law, and it was done with monies that were in fact, and after thorough review of the Attorney General, authorized by the legislature to be used for those purposes.